Speaker Welch, President Harmon, Leader McCombie, Leader Curran, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, my fellow constitutional officers, members of the 104th General Assembly, Chief Justice Neville, and all the justices of the Supreme Court that are here, First Lady M.K. Pritzker, honored guests, and all of the people of the great state of Illinois. I'm very pleased to be here to share with you a message about the state of the state and to introduce another balanced budget proposal. This year is special. We celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. 250 years this democracy has stood, imperfect at times, struggling at others, but always with pride in our people's enduring aspirations to steer this nation toward unity, freedom, and justice. During that quarter of a millennia, Illinois has played a unique role in helping our country bridge the fractures that inevitably emerge in a young nation. It's also the 50th anniversary of the establishment of Black History Month, set in February to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, and to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans. Yesterday, we lost a giant who spent his life on the front lines of the civil rights movement. He broke down barriers, he inspired generations, and he kept hope alive. I ask all of you to stand and join me in a moment of silence for the passing of Reverend Jesse Jackson. Thank you all very much. Throughout my time in office, I've tried to bring attention to Illinois' important role in history. I've told you stories about the Great Chicago Fire, about the uniqueness of our handwritten copy of the Gettysburg Address, about the heroes of the pandemic we faced a century ago, about our predecessors in these offices who confronted unexpected crises and who found solutions they previously didn't think were possible. I've told you stories about Illinoisans whose names loom large in American history, and some whose names history forgot. I think to lead, it's important to be a student of history. If you have the courage to confront all of our past, the good and the bad, the hopeful and the messy, history has the power to inform a better future. I have particularly enjoyed reaching into the state archives to see the state of the state messages that past governors have delivered to this body. I admit there is a particular comfort in reading the words of people that preceded me by generations and hearing their frustration with problems remarkably like the ones that we confront today. I also like the idea that some poor governor 100 years from now will read these words looking for comfort. I've always been intrigued by Governor John Peter Altgeld, and I discovered the State of the State message to the 39th Illinois General Assembly all the way back on January 9th, 1895. Altgeld's State of the State lasts for 60 pages. I assure you mine today is considerably shorter. Yeah. Note which side of the aisle that came from. During his State of the State, he talked about the need to ensure that science would govern the practice of medicine in Illinois, the high cost of insurance, the condition of Illinois' prisons, the funding of state universities, a needed revision of election laws, the concentration of wealth in large businesses, and a section entitled women in public service. That last part starts with Altgeld's pride about appointing women to positions in state government, well before women had the right to vote. And he concludes by saying, "The army of women who are obliged to earn their own bread is constantly increasing. Justice requires that the same rewards and honors that encourage and incite men should be equally in the reach of women in every field and activity. And I am glad to report that they have met every reasonable expectation. As a rule, they have done their work well." Now, I bring up Governor Altgeld's words on the subject of equal rights to highlight one enduring human truth. Injustice can become a genetic condition we bequeath on future generations if we fail to face it forthrightly. When we gathered here a year ago, President Trump had just taken office. To be perfectly candid, as Illinois is one of the states whose taxpayers send more dollars to the federal government than we receive back in services, I was hoping that his threats to gut programs that support working families was the kind of unrealistic hyperbole that fuels a presidential campaign, but then is abandoned when cooler heads prevail. Unfortunately, it seems there are no cooler heads at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue these days. $8.4 billion. $8.4 billion. That is how much the Trump administration has cost the people of Illinois. Alongside many other states, Illinois is fighting more than 50 cases in court where the federal government is illegally confiscating money that has already been promised and appropriated by the Congress to the people of Illinois. These are not handouts. These are dollars that real Illinoisans paid in federal taxes and that have been constitutionally approved by our elected Democratic and Republican representatives in Washington. Unlike the federal government, every year Illinois must balance its budget. When Donald Trump is taking resources away that are rightfully ours, none of us, Democrats or Republicans, should be okay with that. So as we embark on this journey of maintaining our state's now reestablished record of fiscal responsibility, I want to say to anyone on either side of the aisle, if you want to talk about our FY 2027 budget, you must first demand the return of the money and resources this president has taken from the people of Illinois. On top of the cost inflicted on this state's residents, billions in illegally withheld funds, our state is also forced to spend enormous time and taxpayer money going to court and fighting to get what is rightfully ours. A heinous example of the government's waste and fraud, if I have ever seen one. For his work expertly wielding his legal sword to protect our state, I want to ask you to join me in recognizing our outstanding Attorney General, Kwame Raoul. Thank you. It is impossible to tally the hours, days, and weeks that our state government has spent chasing news of presidential executive orders, letters, and edicts that read like proclamations from the Lollipop Guild. Here's just one glaring example. The Trump administration, out of the blue, asked the Illinois Department of Transportation to spend state money getting rid of rainbow crosswalks in Chicago. That was happening while victims of severe storms, flash floods, and tornadoes were waiting months for a response to their requests for FEMA to help their devastated communities. Those requests for relief were then denied by the president, at great cost and pain to the communities affected. But hey, I'm glad someone in Washington is focused on what color our crosswalks get painted. Meanwhile, the president is making life harder and less affordable with tariff taxes on working families and small businesses. Trade wars devastating farmers, cuts to healthcare, food assistance, and education, imposing increased bureaucracy on states, lower job creation than any year since Trump's first term. You get the idea. Here's the good news. Illinois has suffered through similar hardship before, and we know the way out. Since 2018, our state's credit rating has gone from near junk bond status to getting 10 consecutive credit upgrades. Our $8 billion overdue bill backlog has been paid. Our pension funded ratio has gone from nearly an all-time low to now the highest in 17 years. And our rainy day fund has grown from $4 million to $2.4 billion. And we've done all of this while balancing the budget every year and making historic investments in education, in child welfare, in disability services, in private sector job creation. We've been building a fiscal foundation to ensure that come hell or high water, including the turbulence of Donald Trump, we can manage through the hard times and nevertheless make progress for a brighter future. Despite the headwinds, the Illinois economy has proven remarkably resilient, forging ahead on our path toward accelerating growth and expansion. This year, our state's GDP surpassed $1.2 trillion, up from $881 billion when I took office. We are among the top 20 economies in the world, and a top 5 state for electricity production. We are now number 13 in CNBC's best states for business, up a whopping 17 spots since 2019. For the third year in a row, Illinois ranked as the number 2 state in the nation for corporate expansions and relocations into our state. And in 2025, our Department of Commerce and Illinois Economic Development Corporation attracted a record-setting amount of investment across all of our regions. Site selectors and companies looking to move to Illinois consistently tell me that our high-quality, skilled workforce sets us apart nationally. And skilled workers are choosing Illinois because they earn more here. In fact, Illinois ranks 4th nationally for college graduates seeing a return on investment in their education. And for earnings in the trades, like construction, Chicago is number 1 in the country for large metros, and Peoria is number 1 for mid-sized metro areas. And for small metro areas, Decatur, Champaign, and Rockford are numbers 2, 3, and 4, respectively. And while Donald Trump says it's a hellhole here, 113 million domestic and international visitors still flock to Illinois, spending a record $48.5 billion, driving an all-time high in hotel tax revenue and restoring O'Hare as the busiest airport in the nation. Look, I want to grow our economy faster, and now that we've turned this state in the right direction, a growing number of companies are choosing Illinois to make investments and create jobs. Our narrative in our economy is changing and improving, and we're setting ourselves up for even better results in the years ahead. It has been a remarkable year for K-12 education in our state. We prioritized school funding, putting billions more into public education to improve the student-teacher ratio and get better outcomes for our children. And it's working. The nation's report card compares all 50 states, and the results are clear. Illinois is among the best in the nation. Only 1 state outpaced Illinois in 8th grade reading scores, and only 4 states outpaced Illinois in 8th grade math scores. We're leading the pack because of sustained investments in education. At the same time, Illinois' high school graduation rate has climbed to its highest level in 15 years. And high schoolers' participation in career and technical education has grown to nearly 300,000 students statewide. Those results were driven in part by the passion and the dedication of the record high number of teachers employed in our state this year. Our teacher vacancy grant program has invested $120 million to help school districts recruit and retain educators. Because of those remarkable results and because of our commitment to building on what works, I'm proud to say that we are extending the program for a fourth year. Year after year, this legislative body has come together to solve generational challenges through even the most difficult years, including the recent passage of monumental legislation to build a world-class transit system and incentivizing new energy sources to make electricity more affordable. In this spring legislative session, we will need to harness the same ingenuity, urgency, and commitment to overcome obstacles that would otherwise hinder real fiscal progress for the state. In that spirit, today I am proud to once again present you with a balanced budget proposal. Seven times now, I have promised to propose and sign a balanced budget, and 7 times I have delivered on that promise. This year will be no different, despite how challenging this 8th year's budget is. Prudence demanded that this year's budget proposal seeks a discretionary spending increase that is less than 0.5%. It levels off and in some cases reduces programs that are important to me, some of which were proposals of my own. But I believe that the imperative of responsible governance and overcoming the fiscal irresponsibility of past decades must come ahead of the interests of any one politician, of any one program, or any one party. That doesn't mean that we can't make transformative progress. We won't let headwinds from Washington stop us from addressing the fact that Illinoisans, like Americans everywhere, are still paying too much for groceries, too much for housing, too much for electricity, too much to live. Everything is just too damned expensive. And that's why now more than ever, we must work together to make life more affordable for Illinois' working families. I propose an agenda to address the high cost of living that makes life easier for the middle class and those striving to get there. Let's start with housing. The problem is clear. Rent is too high and home ownership is too far out of reach. The cause is clear too. We are not building enough homes fast enough. The Project for Middle Class Renewal at the University of Illinois issued a report last summer showing that we will need to build 227,000 more homes by 2030 to keep up with demand. In many places, local regulations have made it too difficult and costly to build new housing. Some of the rules even have shameful roots that go back to the days of redlining. Often the problem is a failure to modernize and keep up with the changing times that we live in. It all adds up to bureaucratic red tape that unnecessarily increases costs, delays construction, and frequently kills projects altogether. For example, local parking mandates often require a uniform minimum number of spaces for every new build, even in places where people don't have cars because they have ample public transit and available street parking. Unused parking spots add millions of dollars in costs and severely limit the number of new units that can be built affordably. Spaces for cars are being prioritized over spaces for people. The great news is we have developers ready to build homes, and we have Illinoisans who need them. And it doesn't get done because of these regulations. It's on us to help fix it. Today, I'm proud to announce the Building Up Illinois Developments, or BUILD plan, an initiative to lower housing costs by making it easier, faster, and more effective to build homes in Illinois. This is an ambitious slate of reforms designed to eliminate unnecessary barriers and lower costs for housing construction, produce a wider range of family-friendly housing types, and streamline construction processes. We will enable more unused housing units to be redeveloped and put them into service. City by city, town by town, neighborhood by neighborhood, block by block. A little more housing in each area can significantly advance our housing stock. We'll add to that a robust approach to closing financing gaps for developing housing of all kinds, from targeted funds for smaller projects to direct support to local communities so that they can clear initial hurdles and make housing sites build ready. Focusing on affordable housing, the Next Generation Capacity Building Initiative is designed to provide capital, training, and technical resources to allow more affordable housing developers to access low-income tax credits in diverse communities. Removing barriers for home builders will attract responsible developers to build in places that they've been unwilling to build in so far. Reduced regulation, greater financing options, a wider range of smaller units made available for rent. We can add hundreds of thousands of homes in Illinois with this creative approach. Illinois is up to the task, but it has to start now, here, and with us. Now, affording to have a home is one thing. Affording to live in it is quite another. Electricity bills are eating up more and more of household budgets across the country, and that's got to stop. We are fortunate in Illinois. With the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, we created an energy credit program that is putting money back into the pockets of Illinois consumers. That means this year, families will receive $803 million in credits on their electricity bills. That's on top of the $1.3 billion in credits CEJA has already provided. Over the long run, bringing down electricity bills requires producing and delivering more energy for Illinois' homes and businesses. But let's not ignore the fact that lowering electricity prices is truly a multifaceted challenge. We need to think critically about our future energy usage with the needs of Illinois households at the forefront. So, in the face of rising demand and surging prices, I'm proposing a 2-year pause on authorization of new data center tax credits. With the shifting energy landscape, it is imperative that our growth does not undermine affordability and stability for our families. There are also a massive number of new renewable energy projects awaiting interconnection across the region that our Northern Illinois grid operator, PJM, has moved too slowly to bring online. So together,